Yeah, I would like to introduce the guests on the table. At the left hand is Max Bruinsma. Max Bruinsma is from Items. Then we have Wijnand, who of course gave the introduction lecture on biodiversity. And on my left side, Ronald Rietveld, who also gave a lecture today. So I would like to start with the first statement. And that is people will protect nature because they want to, not because they have to. Maybe, Wijnand, what is your opinion on this statement? What do you think about it? Is it because of the need or because of the want?
I'm afraid it will be the need.
Okay.
I guess, yeah. A few years ago we also did a study on the level of corporate social responsibility in the Netherlands. And we also looked at drivers for corporate social responsibility. And you could definitely see that in sectors where there was a definite need to do it, from an image point of view or from a business case point of view or whatever, people were working on corporate social responsibility. In many other sectors, where you would want them to work on it, they didn't. And basically with the other researchers that I worked on that case, we agreed in the end that probably people will take up corporate social responsibility, and it also goes for biodiversity, I think, in the end, when they have to. One phrase I think that we use then is the last thing the fish finds is water. As long as you do not really feel the need to change, you will not change.
Max, do you think the same?
More or less. I would say that necessity generally is more effective than preference. You may like something, but unless you really need to do or get it, you will not put enough energy.
So basically, you both don't agree with the statement.
No, not as it. You would want it to be. It's like with ethics. Mm-hmm. You would want to. You would want that everyone would see the necessity and the normality of certain ethics standards. But history and practice proves that you have to. Take some stronger measures.
You have a background in history
in
as
art
well.
history,
yeah.
Which is actually more about the opposite of what I'm saying now. It's about preference, not necessarily need. But even there, I mean, if you look at lifestyle advertisement, very often you see slogans like "This is what you need," "You want this," etc., etc., which is for me quite telling.
Okay, Ronald, what's your perspective on this?
Yeah, more or less the same. And I think it's of course you have people individually want to do something and really do something. But on a large scale, it's hardly impossible, and then I do agree with them. Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anyone from the audience that disagrees? So that agrees with the statement and disagrees with the gentleman on the table? Yeah, okay. That's not easy that you are sitting all over there, so I'm gonna run into you.
Just toss it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, maybe keep the mic in the audience, and I will get back to there. But spread it if there are any.
Going back what you said about lifestyle, if you see consumption, I don't want to say all of it, but a rather big percentage of consumption is also driven by because you want to, not because you have to. In terms of fashion, you don't really need the latest trend, but you want it. So in that sense, how, if that will be an interesting question, I think, how can we start making make it more as a desire rather than that I have to, like instead of a necessity, something more emotional?
I think the crucial thing here is to make sure people understand that it is not a matter of taste whether you're protecting nature. But exactly a matter of necessity. So what you're referring to as you know, you want something. That's a matter of taste, and you may disagree about tastes, and you may say, well, this shirt that the other person is wearing is absolutely horrible, but they have the right to wear it. That is not an approach that helps very much in the light of problems like biodiversity, etc.
And what about education?
What about, sorry?
Education.
Education.
Same there.
Same thing. Do you both agree on this one?
I think so too. Yeah. For me, again, it's really about, there are many individuals who want to change things and try to change it, but this is such a general question. I mean, protect nature. What does it mean, eh? Protect nature. I think it happens. There are many individuals in the Netherlands who are busy with their own ground, have a little piece of ground, and try to protect nature there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you talk about this, for example, I will give an example. We've been busy with Terschelling. It's a UNESCO monument, and there we have the Bosplaat. It's on the east side of this island, and this is going to be flooded in the next what will be next 50 years. We have to take we have to do some interventions right now. We proposed a very simple intervention to save this area. It's a part of a UNESCO monument. It's very simple. It's just let sand drift, nothing more, nothing less. And then there is already such a giant discussions. There are 70 parties involved talking about the Waddenzee, and nobody knows from each other what's their responsibility, because the Waddenzee is from nobody. So it will, the end result will be, we will talk about it for 50 years, and the end, this Bosplaat is gone. Although I don't want it, although I want to change it, although I'm trying to change it.
So it's only because people really need to protect it, then people start moving.
No, yeah, but what is need? Seemingly, there is not enough need to keep this UNESCO monument.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, I want to be more optimistic about it, but I have seen it in reality how these things are working. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to the second statement. Oh, yeah. One more. Can you hand over the mic from the?
Are you talking to? Yeah. We have made a solution.
So repeat it one more time, please.
How would you solve this case with the 70 people involved? And
It's not a matter of solving this. It's really impossible. It has to deal with. I'm optimistic person, absolutely in everything. But I'm absolutely pessimistic about this. Possibilities, because it's not a matter of we want to save this. No, it's a matter of that people, 70 different parties have 70 different opinions about nature and about the way nature should be treated. It's also so strange. In the Netherlands, we make nature. And if you say this in other countries in the world, they say, what are you doing? But it's possible here, and there is really a possibility to let this UNESCO monument survive easily in the future. It's not difficult, but it
will not happen because we have a polder model, and in this case, it's not working out.
And we experienced it in reality already.
Okay.
So
okay, we're going to go to the next statement, and that's an interesting one, since we had the people that were here in this theater room when we had the green marketing lecture. The statement, for those who cannot read it, it's advertising is the price companies have to pay for being unoriginal. Does any of the people, Max, what's your opinion on this?
My first association is that this sentence is bad copy, bad copywriting. You could
What's
say
the original?
Well, you could say it's a tautology. Advertising is unoriginal, usually, mostly because it wants to reach as many people as possible, and the only way to do that is by being general. And general and original are two things that are not very compatible, actually. On the other hand, the most famous advertisements that we remember are indeed original. So that seems to contradict.
But it's not
this.
maybe the advertising.
That's-
The advertising can be very original,
Yes.
but the price that the company has to pay, that's what the statement is about.
That's what I was
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
trying
Sorry to interrupt.
to get to. It's the advertising here is not the problem in my view. The problem is companies being unoriginal. The problem is that in today's market you see as an incentive for companies to produce things, to design things, to bring new products into the market, it seems that the single most decisive factor in that is sales. And what is the best way to predict sales is to be unoriginal. That is to be to copy and reproduce things that have been proven successful in the past. This is, in my view, if you look at design culture over the last, say, 20 years, been the reason for stagnation. You see similar or same things all over again for a long time. What's his name? Anderson.
Chris Anderson. No?
An American writer and cultural critic has written about that in Vanity Fair, and he says compare and contrast photos from 1972 with photos from 1992. There's 20 years in between, and you will see that the difference is huge. 72 compared to 92 seems to be another country. Now compare 92 with 2012. You will have trouble pinning the right date on both photos. Nothing seems to have changed much. And this is in part, he analyzes, and I agree with that, this is in part because of the fact that more and more the industry, our culture has become economized, and the industry sees its only function as, in this economic context, and not in a broader cultural context. So innovation is about how to make something that is already there cheaper.
I see.
So being unoriginal is a problem of companies, not advertising.
Wijnand de
I
Roland.
would like to give the
Comments?
microphone
Yeah.
to my neighbor, yeah, because this is the first question and the second questions are in my opinion, really two different
Okay.
worlds. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
It's okay. I think you should react on it.
Yeah, I think it's also a bit of a different world for me as well, I guess. You would probably need to change it to staying in business long term will not happen if you're not being sustainable.
Yeah.
Something like that. For me, finding solutions in the area of biodiversity at this moment probably needs to be. You need to be very original because there's still a lot to find. But once you have a solution, to copy that as much as you can is very much okay with me. But there's no direct relation with advertising whatsoever, I'm afraid.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that agrees with this statement?
Oh, maybe if you would change unoriginal for not green.
Not green.
Yeah, advertising is the price companies pay for not being green.
But how do you see the relationship then?
Push a button.
So you don't believe in green marketing, basically. That's your statement.
No, the panelists would know how to answer.
What's that?
The panelists would know how to answer if the last unoriginal would be green.
Okay.
So you would need advertising to tell your green story, right?
Yeah. Well, that depends. This morning the phrase was you have to make a kind of story, but he wasn't really talking about advertising, right? But more about creating a story that people like.
Right. Which
so,
is
but
about the same, making a story or advertising.
You're telling your story.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's marketing.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
I would like to propose a different statement here. That is that advertising can be a great medium for raising awareness on anything, but also, if you want, on green issues. And I think, advertising is not just a market or a discipline, it's a medium. I think whether or not you agree with their approach, I think Benetton's Real World campaign in the 80s and early 90s has proven that advertisement can be used not just to promote things, but also to promote a mindset, ideas. And so principally there's a huge field open for what you could call positive and awareness-raising advertising, which is, in my view, not enough used.
Okay. The third statement, it's about IP, intellectual property versus open sourcing. We had an interesting lecture from someone of Baker and McKinsey who was talking about everything in detail on IP. And in the end, I asked him the question if what the relation between biodiversity and intellectual property is. And his answer was that without IP, it would be more difficult to make very sustainable products and services that can actually help sustain biodiversity. But he was also open for discussion on this. So that's what we're going to do right now. My personal view, I'm not sure yet. I think there are many ways in which open sourcing can be more helpful for biodiversity than IP, but I'm not really sure. Wijnand, what's your opinion?
Well, maybe what I had expected on the discussion on intellectual property rights is what on biodiversity there are a lot of discussions on intellectual property rights, but then maybe definitely focusing on the role of the pharmaceutical industry, for example, where they talk about biopiracy of companies that going into rainforests, putting patents on all kinds of different findings that they have, using local knowledge and then commercializing it. But it wasn't about that, intellectual property. What I would think about intellectual property, I guess it will depend on the business model. If you're in a sector where research and development is very costly, like it is in the pharmaceutical industry, then using an open source way of commercializing it, I'm not sure if then any company would be willing to put a lot of money in research and development if you, again, put it out in the open.
What if you would use an open source research? Would that be possible?
It's an interesting one, I'm not sure. When I look at my own company, of course, it's also an issue at our place. If we develop a tool, for example, to link business activities to biodiversity, what do we do with the tool? Do we put it on the website and make sure that everybody uses it? Or do we think, well, hell no, we developed it, we want to use it. And I think the first strategy is probably the best, but it will require that somehow you link some kind of a service to the product that you put in the open source. Because in the end, of course, you're all in it for the same objective, a more sustainable world, but at the same time you have to make money.
Yeah, so but also you need to do some investments and you need to get that money back. So how do you do it in an open source environment? That's of course a challenging question.
Yeah, but what we see already now in sustainability consulting, the use of the new media through LinkedIn discussions, etc. Yeah, it's providing a lot of value to what we had before. Ronald?
Yeah, I give the question to Max. I go for the next one.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Well, coming back on your mention of the pharmaceutical industry, the reason why I asked, why not open source research is because I would say that all research in that field, or in the medical field as such, or in any field with a scientific background, starts as open source field. The whole idea of scientific research is open source by definition. The problem with companies sponsoring this kind of research in ever more early stages and thereby sealing off the possible results is I think not just a problem of our society and industry, but also a problem of scientific research as a whole. You see that the budgets for independent research are dwindling, while research that can be done is more and more owned, also in the literal sense, by companies. This is, I think, very worrying. So therefore, the idea of open source I think it's good to remind that the idea of open source is the very core of any scientific research.
Reaction from the audience? Yeah.
I would think that biodiversity.
Is the mic still there? Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I would think that biodiversity is open sourcing in itself. You know, it's about evolution, and I think we really need to change the world and also have, in this respect, well, a different view and not safeguard all things like intellectual property rights.
Nice statement.
That's probably very true, and also that's also the reason why the third objective of the Convention on Biological Diversity is about equitable sharing of the benefits from genetic resources. And that's because they also argue, of course, that biodiversity is a common good or something. But at the same time, the whole issue of access and benefit sharing is a big issue when you're talking about biodiversity. Every 2 years you have a conference of the parties where all the countries get together to discuss the convention and progress. And when you go to a meeting on access and benefit sharing, the room is filled with local communities, Indians, you name it, because it's really a big issue. Because I think the places where you have the largest genetic resources, they also have the largest problems of the access and benefit sharing.
You were talking about poverty this morning. And I think it's also interesting to see how we can, well, we need to have a better balance in the world also in view of our richnesses. So I think I can imagine that in this respect that the people are a kind of keeping what they have well for themselves. They would like to have some benefit maybe of it, but I think we should look for other models of sharing well this biodiversity. I think that's very important. There was a very interesting project at the University of Eindhoven about a kind of currency that was developed by a student. And it was also about, well, if you could really capitalize and then see how you could maybe, well, have a kind of even sharing in the end. So that we share a bit of our wealth, and I think that would be very interesting to look at that as well.
Very interesting. Thanks. I also know that there is, like, of course, the Wikipedia story is an awesome story that everyone wants to put his or her ideas and expertise and yeah, just knowledge in this database. And in the field of biodiversity, I think there's also something like this. It's called Encyclopedia of Life, where you can basically take a picture of anything you see and do an upload on this website. And I think that's a very cool example of open source and biodiversity. The next statement, it's your responsibility, and that's really about if like saving biodiversity or sustaining biodiversity is the responsibility of the public, of the consumer, or is it the responsibility of the business, or is it the responsibility of the government? This statement is that it's the responsibility of the consumer, but I'm interested to hear your perspective on this.
Yeah,
you know, you were the... No?
You can take it first. It's okay.
Well, I'm also a bit of cynic when it comes to the consumer, basically. Yeah. I think when you're talking about social responsibility in general, at least my experience is that it's much more effective to target retailers and businesses than it is to target consumers. I always think that the needs of a consumer are to a certain extent also produced by businesses, of course, by marketing and etc. And I would think that the ones that create the actual impact, the businesses in most cases, should take responsibility. Not necessarily market it as being green, but always take the responsibility to know what you're doing, what you're impacting on, and doing it in a responsible way. It's just a way of doing decent business, basically.
Yeah.
The consumer should not have the choice in a supermarket to choose for a polluting product. And the essence of the problem, of course, is in the fact that there is no polluter pays principle yet. No. They already talked about it 20 years ago, I guess. But you still do not pay for the damage that's being done to society by the products that are being produced. If you would have a real inclusion of the costs to society of production, then some products would be much more expensive and some products would be much cheaper.
Yeah.
And then it gets a completely different picture also for the consumer. Right now the consumer, in most cases you have the consumer and you have the citizen. The citizen wants everything, the consumer just wants something that's cheap for, with good quality. And maybe a few cultural creatives might be different. But to my thinking, the main responsibility lies with businesses and also with governments. There's also the discussion, is biodiversity, is it a common good? Or should it be a commodity that you can trade? And I would think it is a common good that should also be protected as such by government, and businesses should take the responsibility to deal with it in a responsible way.
Okay, Ronald?
Yeah. First I have to say, I entered this symposium at 3:30 or 4:15, so I haven't got the content you all got today.
No worries.
But I want to broaden the discussion a little bit, because the lecture I tried to give half an hour ago was also to make it a little bit broader. I don't know exactly. If you just talk about biodiversity in a small country of the Netherlands, I think it's always about multiple use. So and that's where I'm interested in. I think if you talk about it's your responsibility, I interpret this question like, okay, what's your responsibility as a designer, and what can you contribute to a broader discussion, not just biodiversity, because I think in a small country as the Netherlands, you have always multiple use, and that's. I think that designers can take a much bigger role into complex societal issues, and that also being busy with resources influence the way, also influence the amount of biodiversity. For example, I just told a story about using vacant buildings, 10,000 in the Netherlands. It's something different if you're going to rebuild them, for example. So that takes a giant resource out of the country. And I think what I try to say is that you sometimes maybe should look to bigger systems and not only on biodiversity itself, but try to focus at a more complex system and being busy with resources, with all this stuff. And I think for designers there is a giant opportunity to discover a new world in this. So that's what we also try to do with the office. But on many different layers, as well as in the city, as well as in the landscape, and also being busy with biodiversity.
So as a designer or an architect,
yeah,
or a fashion designer,
yeah,
it's your responsibility basically to help sustain biodiversity in any kind of way you can.
Yeah. And that's not just being busy with plants or animals, but it's a big system.
Yeah.
So and lots
Is there
of things are part of
anyone
it.
from the audience who disagrees with this?
No, but I would like to say that.
Please wait for the mic, because if not, it's not recorded.
I was thinking now that it's kind of difficult in this country because all the land is already used for other things, and actually there is no real nature left, because it's all every part of the country is kind of synthetic nature.
So you cannot help sustain biodiversity as a designer because there is no real biodiversity left. That's your statement.
No,
right?
that's not my statement. Okay. But but I was thinking about most of us probably live in a city like Amsterdam or Rotterdam, and the land use is so dense and so.
So Ronald, what can you do?
I think
for those who weren't in your lecture, maybe.
If you talk about biodiversity, maybe it's good to continue with what you were saying, is to look on a European scale level. So what is, I don't know what you discussed today, but as far as I see it, is the Netherlands is the delta of Europe. Mm-hmm. So if you talk about nature in the Netherlands, why should we save the Veluwe? Focus on the delta systems. That's on the European level it's not. Yeah, there is a reason why the Waddenzee becomes a UNESCO monument, of course. But I think that if you look from a European perspective, you should focus on the nature which belongs to the delta systems, and that's something you can deal with. The reason why I say this is because what I see with planning in general, that there is no focus. We want to do everything, and we should make choices and focus on certain kind of things. The Veluwe sounds interesting, but in Germany we have many Veluwes. So so we could make other choices. Why not?
Wijnand, do you agree from a biodiversity perspective?
I give another expression because I don't know the history of today, so I try to get it clear.
No, it's really an interesting perspective. Now, basically, what I've been discussing as well today is basically a bit of a shift of focus that you see through the years from biodiversity as being nature that should be protected to much more a focus on ecosystem services and the fact that you should look at regions as a whole. So indeed a holistic approach, basically, where you look at the needs of society, including different stakeholders within an area, and you're trying to see, okay, where do we want to be in 20 years' time? And part of where you want to be will be nature. When you look at cultural services or regulating services that you need for the provisioning services that you want to use. So more a regional focused approach, I guess, taking into account all the different stakes and all the different stakeholders in such a region, including the relations between that region and the regions around it, which makes it, of course, a kind of a complex issue to deal with. But it is the shift, I think, that is taking place also on the European level, that they try to map also the ecosystem services within Europe and to see, okay, so how are we going to make sure that in 30 years' time we still have a society where we can deliver the services that we need in the future.
So you agree with Ronald a little bit?
It was a difficult one.
Yeah, it was like, okay.
I think I agree, but not as much from a nature focus, but more from an ecosystem services focus.
Okay.
Which, of course, I completely understand, puts mankind in the middle and makes nature a kind of an instrumental thing, which goes a bit against the intrinsic value maybe of nature. But
the reason why I'm saying it, that you also with biodiversity you should focus on the big important systems, in my opinion, because you have to make other choices in the country as well. We have to place windmills, for example. That's something and we can discuss it. Yeah, do we want windmills or not? No, but it's a kind of task also from out of Europe. But to make these choices, place them at the good, choose the good place. So in the Netherlands, it's more about biodiversity is for me just one part of a whole system of choices we have to make with planning the Netherlands on a giant scale, and therefore you should look to the most valuable systems and try to keep them as a whole. For example, what you were saying. And I can imagine, if you think about the river systems, about the sea, and all this nature which belongs to that, and the wetlands of the Netherlands. This is our
that's what's
strong
most
part.
valuable in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Okay,
we're
going to go to the last statement. Oh, sorry, Max.
Just one short remark on responsibility. We've talked about the consumer's responsibility, producer's responsibility, government's responsibility. I think the binding term there is citizen. Apart from being consumers, producers, etc., we're also citizens, and this is our, let's say, active role in terms of social responsibility. Designers have a specific responsibility, I would say, in that, and this is something that is understood, not understood enough, I think.
Okay.
Designers design behavior. They don't just design products; they design behavior, and they should become more aware of that because the behavior, in turn, has its effect on the environment, on everything. So in the discussion that we're having, there could be more emphasis on the fact that designers design behavior.
Nice. Great statement. Okay, we go to the final statement.
Can I have a question about what was said previously about more emphasis on the regional planning and the river systems, etc.
If you keep it very short.
Yes. My question is, if more emphasis should be put on the regional, larger ecosystems, and on the other hand, more responsibility should be put in the hands of a designer. if more than 75% of the world population is living in cities, very near future, how are these designers living in the cities can actually contribute to these vastly regional systems that are completely outside of the cities? This is very discontinuation with your remark.
I'll start. Well, first of all, ecosystem services do not start at the borders of the city, of course. The city themselves are also ecosystems and part of an ecosystem. So basically, you should not exclude the city as being a place to work as a designer. And for the rest, I think as a designer, you may live in Eindhoven, but it doesn't mean you design for Eindhoven, I guess. So the focus can be much broader as a designer.
Yeah, I do agree with this. And I think at least what I want to add to this is my opinion is that in the Netherlands, it's such a small country, you should be very sharp with your choices, and we need lots of design knowledge and creativity to solve lots of complex issues. And it's for me not just about sustainability, but the whole range of systems which we have to connect together.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Yeah. We go to the final statement of the day, and that sustainability is the largest economic opportunity of the 21st century. Who would like to give the first comment on this?
I'm not sure.
Well, I would say it's certainly the biggest challenge of the 21st century. But to a certain extent, I think I agree that it's also one of the biggest opportunities. Also about all the studies that are being done on business and biodiversity, on the economics of ecosystems and biodiversity. And there's also always a chapter on the business case and why to get involved. And they always mention the opportunity of being the first one to develop some kind of a new product, a new service, tools, etc. And it's also, right now in the Netherlands, of course, the political situation is very much what's in it for us. In development cooperation, in biodiversity, it's all very nice, but what's in it for the Netherlands? And what you see there is also that they say, well, we're good at water management. And it's a huge opportunity when you look at the sustainability issues of the 21st century, to use that knowledge outside of our country and to share that knowledge with other countries. And that basically combines the business case with sustainable development around the world.
Yeah. You don't agree?
No, yeah. For me, again, with the questions, it's really about, they are so broad. Sustainability, I mean, you are now talking about we used to call this kind of engineer working, what we have done before. Now it's called sustainability. From the 17th century we have built up our knowledge how to treat water systems. Nowadays we call it sustainability. It's really about naming things also. If we are also going to talk about this, this is really a core business of the Netherlands, of course, this delta management, etc. So if this is part of sustainability, I do agree with you that there are many opportunities, but it has to do with the definition of this word.
I sometimes use this as a kind of statement, because I think we really need to redesign everything we do. And in that sense, we need to transform the whole economy. And that's a huge economic opportunity as well. And there is just no way that we just keep on going in the direction that we are heading off right now. So that's
and of course, I don't think that sustainability is a new term for water management. I think that fresh water is becoming one of the biggest issues and challenges, of course, in the 21st century. After climate change, probably water will be next.
The question is whether it is an economic opportunity in, let's say, the market term. I mean, because if it would, that would be a very bad thing. It would mean that water would become a very expensive thing. You know, the people who really need it could not reach it.
But there's a different angle as well, and that's Nicholas Stern had about 3 years ago, he published a Stern review, and that was about investing in sustainable solutions. And if we don't invest in time in these sustainable solutions, we will lose, that's also about the economics of ecosystems and biodiversity, the TEEP report, we will lose an X amount of GDP structurally. So it's about 10 to 20% of our GDP. While if we invest right now, it only costs us 2%. And that's a huge economic opportunity, but it's totally depending on how you phrase it and explain it, of course.
Yeah. I would rephrase the statement saying that again.
Yeah, of course, I like it.
I'm an editor. I can't help it. I would say the only way for economic opportunity to survive the 21st century is by becoming sustainable.
That's nice.
I mean, the way it's formulated here sounds to me a bit too much like greed. Like, okay, let's be first and make a lot of money, and then do whatever. That is the kind of mentality that brought us in the economic crisis that we have. So you should not only redefine opportunity, you should redefine the economy, I would say, also, in a sense.
There is no long way competitiveness if you will not be sustainable.
Yeah, I would say so.
Very nice. Is there anyone of the audience that disagrees or agrees or want to make one statement? This is your last chance before we're going to wrap up. Now everyone is tired of it, and
beer.
I can totally understand. Okay, I then would
one
like...
statement. One statement.
Yeah, one statement.
I think that we all lost the contact with nature, and that's why there are lots of problems with it.
Okay, so reconnect with nature. That's a nice last statement. I want to wrap up with two questions, very quick questions to you, and then a short movie of 1 minute to send you home with some inspiration. The first question is, who thinks that today you have a better quality of life? And quality of life, you can define that for yourself, like, do you have a nice life? Is it a little bit imbalanced? But who of you thinks that he or she has a better quality of life today than your parents or your grandparents had it 50 years ago? Who thinks that he or she has a better quality of life? So only a few people.
Again, quality of life is a very broad
Yeah,
definition.
that's a very complex thing. I know. We can have an hour discussion on this, but okay. Okay, the second question is, who thinks that our children in 30 years from now, or maybe 50 years, will have a better quality of life than we have today? Who thinks this is? Okay, only half of it. I'm an optimist, and I believe that my children or my grandchildren will have a better quality of life. But I think today what we learned is that the challenges we will face and we are facing today are huge. And I also think that the opportunities are very big to do something about it. But I'm an optimist, and I want to make sure that you're going to help me, that I prove that being an optimist on this planet is the best thing to do, and prove that I'm right, And I hope you will be an optimist too. And there's a little movie of 1 minute that shows that there are many more optimists in this world that can actually make change happen. So can you please turn it on? This technology works. Yeah. And it's a well-known movie, but I still like it.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them. Because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Okay, a little bit a cheesy movie to end it up, but I think it's a good one. I want to thank the organization. Can I please all have you here, Holly? Maybe the other people that are, please give them a big applause because they organized everything. And of course the panel. And the camera crew and all that, so we can continue. Yeah. The people from the Green Collective will know everything about the contest and of the different competitions. I hope you enjoyed the day. I did. I hope you're a little bit inspired. Maybe I'm gonna send you home with one more sentence, and that's: if you're inspired today, that's great, but it will be even better if you will be inspired in a week from now. And the only thing you will be inspired in a week from now is that you, actually changed something, that you actually did something with this inspiration. So not only take it home and leave it there, but do something with it. And have a great evening. Thanks.